English translation, 239th The Contact. Friday 20th of December, 1991. 00:28 hours.
Ptaah, this is something. I am glad that you finally appear once again. One told me that you went away for a long time and like a flash into the Dal universe because you would have to learn something else there.
That is right. Unfortunately, I did not even have enough time to inform you about it or to visit you again. When I returned to my actual area of responsibility, a delegation was already waiting there for me, with which I immediately left our Dern universe in order to include myself in an important lesson, in order to complete the opportunity offered to me by Asket, my daughter Simya-Se is friend. For those two and also for Nera, I am to convey to you sincere and dearest greetings.
That pleases me. Unfortunately, my visit this year with Simya-Se and the others now probably falls flat, right? There is probably no longer enough time to do so.
That is unfortunately right, but for next year, hopefully, there will not be any more problems in relation to this.
And Quetzal, when will he finally appear again?
That will be, but not with certainty, also in the course of next year.
And have you spoken with Simya-Se about BF, I mean? Even though I did not ask you for this, I thought that perhaps you would do this on your own.
One of our conversations actually contained these mendacious machinations of the man BF. But so we also spoke of all other liars and deceivers, who maintain that they would have contact with us. But in no case does this correspond to the truth. My daughter vehemently stands against all assertions and lies of BF, as well as against all other liars who claim to stand in contact with her. This is not only because she never maintained contact with the Earth humans of this sort, as is imputed to her, but also because she never even wanted contacts with the Earth humans, with just one exception, which you represent. Another contact only arose once during the whole time that she stayed on the Earth, with a woman named Elsa Schroeder. But this contact took place unintentionally and occurred in the Persian desert in the vicinity of the place Zahedin. Note, see also, Pleiadian Pleiaren Contact Conversations, Volume 1, 31st Contact, Thursday, 17th of July, 1975, 10 to 14 ARs, page 238 onwards.
That is somehow still in my memory. But look here, I have a good number of slips of paper that contain nothing but questions. If it is okay with you, then I would first like to plow through this mound of questions.
My time is sufficient to answer the questions for you, as long as such an extended conversation does not come about again, as was the case on the 18th of May.
I hope that this time we will make it in a shorter time. So then, the first question. Do you know the word faun? A plurality is called fauns and otherwise faunus.
Certainly the word faun is a term that was already known in the ancient Lyran languages, and today it is also known in our languages and is also common on the earth. A faun is a horned and goat-footed, sexually lascivious life form, whose original form once came from a very distant world, from the Andromeda galaxy to the Earth, and lived on it for about 700 years, and drove their lustful nuisance. Basically, it concerns a human life form that is also called fauni. The name Faunus, on the other hand, refers to the ancient Roman god of nature, who was the patron of shepherds. In accordance with your words, it is also true that fauns represents the plural form of faun.
So far, so good. There is still another word that has a resemblance with the word faun, but which is stated a little differently, so namely the term fauna. Naturally, certain things of Roman and Greek mythology are well known to me, and thus also your explanations. My question, however, is aimed at something else. So not at mythological explanations, which are nevertheless interesting. A faun is, so to speak, a sexually lascivious being, whose corresponding nature is, to my knowledge, designated as faun-like, whereby this faun-like even means sexually lascivious. But now, the word or the term fauna comes into play. Fauna was, according to Roman mythology, a field and forest goddess, and also the wife of the legendary King Phanes, who was a grandson of Saturnus and the father of Latinus. Here you see, it is in the encyclopedia, that Latinus was venerated after his death, just like Silvanus, as a prophetic field and forest god, and later became equated to the Greek god, Pan. Then, in 194 BC, an associated cult came into being on the Tiber Island in Rome. And now the crux of the long speech. Fauna not only stands as a name for the field and forest goddess Fauna, but also as a term for the animal world. Fauna also similarly means animal kingdom, etc., whereby fauna-like would then have to mean beastly, beast-like, animalistic, etc.
This word fauna is also of ancient Lyran origin, and is just as common with us as it is also still common on the earth in its human languages. Nevertheless, I make the astonishing finding with your explanation that you correctly pronounce the expanded and defining form of the word and term and also apply it correctly, which does not appear with the earth humans, unfortunately, as I know.
What do you mean?
You said fauna-like.
Do you mean that this word formation is correct? Do you mean that if one speaks of beast-like, animal-related, beastly and animalistic, always in the sense that just the life and operation etc. of the animal world is meant, then the word and the term fauna-like is correct, and not faunish?
Certainly. Nevertheless, the word is called fauna-like, fully according to the original word, fauna. Faunish, on the other hand, is an entirely wrong designation if it concerns the animal kingdom, because the term faunish solely stands for sexual lasciviousness.
Well, my friend, that is exactly what I wanted to know, because I have always been of the view that the word fauna-like is actually correct, and not faun-like. If the basic word fauna contains an A, then the expanded word must also have an A. Otherwise, a completely wrong term arises.
With which you are in the right place to give the truth.
Thank you. Then, the next question. When women or men paint their faces, use lipstick, paint their eyebrows, apply blush, etc., etc., for what reasons is this done? And do the women also do this with you? Even though I have made no such findings, it could still be possible. That with you, for example, hair is colored, I know this from Simya Se, and also that eyes are colored with certain colors.
With us, this has other reasons than with the earth humans. Hair, for example, is not simply dyed with ordinary dyes, as this is also the case with the eyes. Rather, it concerns medical ingredients that have very specific properties. Unfortunately, it still also happens with us that human beings suffer from headaches or from sensitivity to light. These evils are prevented by the fact that in the case of susceptibility to headaches, the hair is treated with certain active ingredients which can be dyed, after which the hair then delivers the necessary active ingredients into the cerebral cortex, by which means no further headaches will appear for a long time, as long as the hair can still deliver the active ingredients. It is the same with the eyes, into which the substances that can be dyed are instilled, which reduce the sensitivity to light, whereby the ones afflicted with the evil become normal-sighted. However, cosmetics and beautifying makeup, etc., are not usual with us among both sexes. When the earth humans, however, put on makeup and use a variety of cosmetics, this is based solely on reasons of psychological injury, mental aberration, and the like, as we have clearly and analytically fathomed in hundreds of thousands of Earth humans. A wrong desire to want to appear as more than what one actually is forms the main factor for all artificial beautification attempts, which, in truth, cause the exact opposite of what is desired and arouse disgust.
We call this war paint, and it is actually disgusting, no matter whether only a little blush is applied on the lips or whether a full face application takes place.
I also wanted to express something similar.
Then another question. In the future, may we use the space photos snapped by me and make them publicly accessible?
That should be omitted under all circumstances. I cannot give permission for this. Too many factors speak against the fact that the images should be presented. Already, once before, we made the mistake of giving permission for publication, and it brought immense harm. The human beings and the times have not yet changed sufficiently that we could allow these pictures to be published, either in small circles or in the greater public. We must strictly insist that the remaining pictures are not used for any purposes. Quetzal destroyed all of your own pictures, like also the pictures of San Francisco. Only Guido is, according to our knowledge, still in possession of space pictures. Nevertheless, he may not utilize these under any circumstances. Otherwise, we would have to destroy these as well, which would cause us very much sorrow, because for a much later time they will be of great utility, which Guido will not experience, however, because this will be long after his time.
Thus, the next question. Actually, I wanted to ask Quetzal about this, but in want of the fact that he is not present now, which I had expected, I now ask you in your visit, for maybe you can give me information. Almost 2 years ago, I lost my revolver belt, before I then finally found it in a plastic bag, hidden in my office and, indeed, in porch furniture. The belt was completely rotten and full of grayish-white mold, just as though it had been used somewhere, where a leather-destructive atmosphere prevailed. Do you perhaps know something about this? Did Quetzal perhaps mess around with it?
The belt was not at its usual place?
No, it was not, for otherwise I would not have searched for it for 2 years.
An unfortunate thing, because the belt should not be damaged and also should have been at its original place.
So then, Quetzal is not the sly dog, but rather you?
Both of us, Quetzal and I.
Oh no, you are a nice pack of crooks to me. Are you not ashamed, then, in your old age?
We certainly did not want to sadden you, and we also did not want to cause you any harm. We figured that you would understand us, and that you would even have your fun with it.
Understand and fun? Of course I understand, you elf, and I am glad to hear that you packed your sense of adventure. What have you done then, if I may ask? Were you on a dinosaur hunt, and did you fire away at the poor little animals? Also, I am missing 240 rounds of ammunition. At first I thought it was only 100, but in the meantime, I carefully checked and determined that there are actually 240 rounds that are missing. And the cannon did not even blast your ears off. After all, it was the .44 Magnum that you had borrowed. You are truly my heroes. Hopefully, you at least really had your fun with it.
Of that you can be assured. It just came over us. And so, we took your revolver and enough ammunition and set off for a few days to a world that is still rather primitive, on which primeval animals still actually live, including dinosaurs. Quetzal and I alternately wore your belt. Of course, we would not shoot at the animals, but we just scared them if they came too close to us. Much to our regret, I have to admit that we were not prepared for the effect of the firing apparatus, so neither Quetzal nor I, because with the first shot, the same mishap happened to both of us.
It was probably such that the gun flew out of your hand and on its own, right?
Unfortunately, yes, because with our weapons and work tools, we have no such problems.
Do you mean that your weapons, etc., do not generate any recoil?
That is correct.
But at least it was fun for you. Was it, so to speak, a vacation getaway?
We took a 4-day vacation for it. A time that we will never forget. Quetzal and I, we can now understand your adventurous life and your sense of adventure.
Nice, I am happy for you. Maybe now you can, here and there, take a vacation of the same type and in the same manner.
We have planned for that, yes.
Splendid. And you see, I once told you that even old age does not keep one from crossing the line every now and then, from experiencing adventures and freaking out. But why in three devils' names, why did you hide my belt after your adventure in the porch furniture, so that it could rot? The primitive atmosphere had added quite a bit to it. Jacobus needed 2 days to clean it and to bring it back in order.
We thank him for his efforts, but it was not our intention to cause damage. We did not personally return the belt and the shooting device to the place where we had fetched both, but we transported it back by our corresponding apparatuses. It must have happened that the place was not selected correctly. For this mishap, I would like to apologize.
It is not worth mentioning, my friend, because everything has settled down again.
I thank you for your understanding.
Perhaps you should just ask some other time before you take a weapon from me. Such a shooting iron could backfire into the eye if one does not know how to handle it.
We had this experience.
Even so.
We did not ask you first because we were afraid that you would first instruct us for several weeks or months in the handling of the weapon.
That would have probably been the case.
Our intention, however, was to learn and fathom everything independently.
Which you also admirably succeeded in doing, even though it really could have backfired into your eye. I am extremely glad, however, that everything went well, and that nothing bad happened, and also that it was fun for you. You know, I can understand both of you very well, maybe only too well, because the urge often arises within me simply to set out again and resume my adventurous life of earlier times, even if just for a short time, even just as a vacation, as both of you have done this. 2 or 3 days would already be something. Maybe it will happen once, who knows? Maybe you or Quetzal or one else of you could drop me off sometime, somewhere where I could just be by myself for 2 or 3 days. Perhaps it would be possible for you to take me to the Himalayas once, where I could go on a search for the legendary Mahali Dhamma.
This possibility could be taken into consideration. But whether you could see one of these beings through this, that I cannot decide. Indeed, I would see a chance with you, for I know your often perseverance while pursuing the area of legends when you want to achieve something. For this reason, I am ready to accept that you would actually succeed in seeing a Mahali Dhamma.
We will see, yes, whether something can actually be done. Something else. Do you know anything about the fact that on the 1st of June of this year, which was the night of our monthly meeting, something special arose, on the one hand with us during the meeting, and on the other hand afterwards, and to be sure, after midnight, high in the sky.
If your question refers to the fact that high in the sky, 3 perfectly circular light phenomena were visible for several hours behind the clouds, which were continually circling around in the same space that was many kilometers in diameter, and that there was a loud knocking at the door of the hall room where your meeting was held, then I can explain a few things about that to you.
That is exactly what it concerns, yes.
Good. Then listen. The knocking at the door was made by Nara the Glorious One, the leader of our still-standing operating station. At the time of your meeting, he went to the grounds of the center and heard certain voices and remarks of group members, which made it seem appropriate to him to provide peace by a strong knocking at the door. He felt that it was very unfortunate and very painful, that the fallible ones showed you so little respect and proceeded with you as though you were some inferior creature who could simply be trampled on. I, too, and all of us, regret this very much, and it is extremely disconcerting to us that it is still the habit of certain group members to insult you with words like this and to question your integrity. It even shocked us that we had to learn such from Nara, for we were of the opinion that such would no longer arise against you, and that all group members had completely changed themselves in this respect and had completely changed for the better. In no wise do we understand why honor, respect, reverence, and decency, as well as appreciation, are not given to you by all group members, as such is entitled to you.
For some, that will probably never happen. For others, it will just take a little longer. But now, what exactly were the weird lights, which must have been several hundred meters in diameter, and—
Of course, I did not explain that. The three large, circling light phenomena, which lasted for several hours, were three spaceships that belonged to a larger fleet of our friends from the Dale universe who visited the Earth. They stayed in the terrestrial space for several days, and thus also over your center and in its nearer environment. That night they circled over the lakes of Pfeffikon and Greifensee in order to investigate these. But in order to be protected from the prying eyes of the Earth humans, they remained high above the high-floating clouds, but through which the luminous ionization shrouds could still be seen from the Earth, which shone through the clouds. However, this was not observed by many human beings.
it would have been nice if they had let us see them. Was a skate perhaps also there?
No, she did not come into our universe. The entire fleet consisted of flying crafts that were equipped solely for research purposes, including the three that you could observe.
My first real UFO experience by Christian Frenner, Switzerland.
It was in the early 80s, when I occasionally observed the starry night sky and, on occasion, observed moving, respectively flying, points of light that moved in various directions and at various speeds across the sky. Then, in each case, I always asked myself whether it was a satellite or even a so-called UFO. I was aware that satellites are only visible when they reflect sunlight. An object that would move into the so-called Earth's shadow while shining at the same time would certainly not be a satellite. However, I always decided against looking deeper into the matter and inquiring, for example, about the orbital height of the satellites, respectively the dimensions of the Earth's shadow in relation to the different seasons and night times. Somehow it was not so important to me to know whether the point of light was a so-called UFO or a satellite. Then, on the night of the 1st to the 2nd of June, 1991, it had finally come so far that I, as it later turned out, would experience my first confirmed sighting of an extraterrestrial object, or more precisely, of three objects. It was already after midnight, after our monthly core group general assembly in the Simyase Silver Star Center, when I stood, together with other core group members, on the west side of the shed, and saw in the southwesterly direction, hanging in the clouds in the sky, three bright spots of light circling around in large elliptical orbits. At first, I thought it might be a laser projection from a discotheque or an open-air festival, etc., which was emitted into the clouds in the night sky for advertising purposes. I had been able to observe such at home at various times on weekends, but in each case, only a single point of light, and in fast, hectic movements. This is understandable when one considers the hectic music and the desired advertising effect. Therefore, On the aforementioned evening, I had to agree with Billy when he excluded this possibility, since the three lights were really moving too slowly and over too wide of an area across the night sky. They weren't airplanes, hot air balloons, or even swarms of insects. So what were they? The solution to the mystery finally resulted on the occasion of Billy's next meeting with Ptaah, which took place on the 20th of December, 1991. Ptaah explained that we had seen the luminous ionization shrouds of three very large spaceships originating from the DL universe. These very large spaceships that were only equipped for research purposes and that were of a larger fleet moved high over the high cloud cover. In order to be able to pursue their research projects undisturbed, there above, in the area of Pfeffiker and Greifensee.
A fantastic spectacle by Billy Eduard Albert Meyer and Madeleine Brugger, Switzerland.
In the early morning hours, so around 1:30 a.m. on the 2nd of June, 1991, we could observe from the center, after our core group meeting, the following. We were sitting in the kitchen and drinking coffee when Elizabeth Moosbrugger came rushing in and asked us to accompany her outside, for there was something high in the sky that we should not let ourselves miss. So we, that is Billy, his wife Calliope Pope, Jacobus Bertschinger, Christian Freiner, Andreas Schubiger, and I, hurried after Elizabeth, who had quickly left the kitchen again. Outside, we ran to her on the path to the parking lot behind the Figu Monument. Having reached the destination, Elizabeth drew our attention to three huge light phenomena that were visible in the westerly direction in the high-hanging clouds and that moved high over our position at the flagpole and the shed. The three disc-shaped spots of light, which became strongly apparent through the clouds below, exhibited a pulsating and rightward rotating motion. The light phenomena themselves were of a whitish color and were huge, conjectures amounting to about 300 meters in diameter, namely for every single one. Of course, we wondered about this phenomenon, about what exactly it could have been, but without result. Then, after an observation period of approximately 1 hour, the light phenomena suddenly disappeared. For some time we continued to discuss in the kitchen what had been seen, whereby there was also talk of the fact that they could have possibly been laser projections. This idea was soon abandoned. However, because everything spoke against it, both the enormous sizes of the light spots as well as the pulsating and rotating motions, and above all, because it was abundantly clear that the clouds were not just illuminated from below and from the earth, but that this happened from above the clouds. In the end, Billy, who also had no explanation, volunteered to ask Ptaah, the spaceship commander and Ishwish of the Pleiades Pleiaren, on his next visit, whether he or any other person of his group knew anything about the phenomenon or whether the Pleiadians Pleiaren were perhaps even involved in it. On Friday, the 20th of December 1991, the long-awaited contact with Ptaah took place at 0.28 HRs, after which we then learned from Billy what explanation there was for the light phenomena of the 2nd of June. As his Pleiadian Pleiaren friend explained to him, they were three large spaceships from the neighboring Dal universe, the twin universe to ours, the Dern universe, as the Pleiadians, Chosh Pleiaren, call this. The ships were on an exploration and research flight in our universe, whereby they also inspected the Simyase, Silver Star Center. Having entrenched themselves behind the dense clouds, in order not to stand out too much to the Earth humans who were still wandering around like ghosts late at night, one could only see the light of their ionization shrouds, as well as the rightward rotating and pulsating motions of the white light phenomena, which offered us observers a fantastic spectacle.
Also, several group members saw the light phenomena, not just me alone. May I now ask you once again for certain things regarding the previous lives and names, etc. of the group members and loved ones? You told me during your last visit that you would first have to ask the High Council in this regard.
That I did. The High Council gave the advice that we should refrain from such efforts. All past experiences resulted in the conclusion that this type of information was not expedient and never will be. On the one hand, every person must recognize and process the truth and all things through his or her own reason. And on the other hand, the person becomes dependent on such information and no longer acquires it himself or herself. But if you or we would be given the desired information, especially with regard to certain aspects of previous lives or to practices and guidelines in the present life, then for the persons concerned, we would take the self-initiative to fathom everything, to handle everything correctly, and take sole responsibility for everything. However, we may not do this, even if one continues to ask for it so often. Unfortunately, I can tell you nothing else about this.
You have no reason to grieve over it. Your words are clear and logical, so I do not want to burden you any more with such questions. I will inform the questioners of the decision of the High Council. More should not have to be said on top of that. There is only one thing that worries me, namely, it would probably be good if I could get the necessary information from you.
In these concerns, nothing changes because old determinations are in place, which make the relevant information retrievable. All pertinent data and information, however, I can and may only give to you in confidence in each case, which you then also have to treat accordingly.
Of course, then that is also clear. Well, you are surely oriented over the fact that our child, Gilgamesha, had a very serious car accident on the 9th of August, such that since then, she can no longer hear and can no longer speak, and also her arms, hands, and fingers are no longer fully functional, as she must also learn to walk again, and still carries a metal frame on her right leg, from which several large screws are screwed into the flesh and into the bones. She also suffered a double fractured pelvis, and her left leg was also severely fractured. I do not want to speak of all the open wounds on her head, body, arms, legs, and hands, nor of how much of her had to be stitched, and that Gilgamesha lay in a coma for several weeks. But why am I telling you all this? For you will, indeed, know everything. Just why did you not tell me anything about it? It certainly would have been better for me if I could have prepared myself for it. I knew absolutely nothing about the fact that Gilgamesha had such a bad destiny for these evil events.
Pay Gilgamesha my best wishes and all love. But know, my friend, that your daughter in no way exhibited such a destiny, so the event happened by a stroke of fate that resulted from the unfortunate circumstance that she was. Exactly at that moment, in that place where she became hit by a man with his vehicle. A man who knows and respects no responsibility for anything or any other life except his own. Thus, no determination was available for this event. Rather, it was a stroke of fate that could have only been seen by a certain foresight. Therefore, I also could not give you any details in advance.
Well, dear friend, that is what I had supposed, and also explained to the group members, because I simply could not imagine that you would have concealed something like that from me. But let's leave this. Here, I have a question about the tree's elimination into the past. Can you explain this process in more detail, at least in relation to what into the past elimination actually means?
Unfortunately, I may not give a full explanation in relation to this because such knowledge still will not fall into the area of the acute possibilities of the terrestrial scientists for a long time. In particular, their sense of responsibility for such knowledge and for such possibilities of the elimination of matter is still given in no wise and is not even available in the first beginnings. The terrestrial scientists and other responsible ones have not yet progressed so far in their sense of duty and sense of responsibility that they do not negatively utilize all their results and achievements. On the contrary, their lack of sense of duty and their fully departing sense of responsibility are still so underdeveloped that they immediately have any new invention and any new product or research results negatively utilized for purposes of war, destruction of nature, and annihilation of life of all kinds.
I do not want to have a formula as an explanation, but simply and solely want to know how the process of elimination runs.
I understand. The process is that every single atomic unit of the object to be eliminated is dissolved retroactively from the moment of elimination, whereby any relevant unit changes into non-existence and dissolves into pure energy.
Does that mean, if I understand correctly, and if I can correctly express myself as a layman, that every single atom of an object to be eliminated is dissolved from the present into the past, even up to its origin, and is transformed into pure energy? Energy that would actually have to consist then of a certain form of electrons, for I assume that there is not just one type of electron in creation's structural plan.
I have nothing more to add to your explanation because by and large it meets with reality. I also would not want to give any further details, because I know only too well your wise of thinking and your incredible ability to grasp and your ability to combine, whereby you have already often gained and explained insights that should actually still be concealed.
Well, then just don't. Even so, many thanks. So, my friend, and now I long for a good drink. Although I already drank a small glass tonight, I still feel like a second one. If I may perhaps also offer one to you, I would be tremendously pleased. It is a peach wine with very low alcohol content, but which I can still drink without difficulties, without it affecting me somehow. What do you think, Ptaah?
I am not entirely at ease with your offer because, as you know, we only drink alcohol-like drinks, but not alcoholic drinks. Therefore, I do not know whether the drink would be good for me.
It will surely agree with you, because if I can drink it, in spite of my many medicines, without it harming me somewhat, then it certainly will not harm you in any wise. The wine only has 9% alcohol by volume, which is as good as nothing. You just have to drink the wine slowly and in small sips and over longer periods of time. You may need 20 or 30 minutes to do it calmly.
Since you are so sure and because I have full confidence in you, I would gladly like to do this once and drink a glass of this wine with you.
Your assent pleases me immensely. So here, my friend, this is your glass. So cheers and to all the best. That is supposed to be a toast, because with us, it is a custom and tradition that one wishes for something good when one drinks alcohol.
I did not know that, but I find this kind and wise very pleasing. My friendship and love are always with you.
Thanks, my friend. But now let us take a sip.
Ah, this is really very good, and it is also refreshing.
Aha, you are also quick on the draw. You also know very quickly what is good. If you would like, then I will very gladly give you a bottle of this wine.
You want to do that?
Sure, otherwise I would not say it. When you go, I will give you a bottle.
I thank you very much, dear friend Edward.
You still have some tones. That is the first time that you express my name, and moreover, my real name. Man, Ptaah, you make me especially happy today. You, like all the others, just always called me friend, so the addition of my name is completely new. Moreover, you do not call me Billy, like the entire world, but you call me by my birth name. I almost forgot how this name actually sounds. Only Marcel Hertz still uses it. My mother and some others call me Edie, Like also Jacobus, for example.
You are happy about it, and so I am also happy.
Indeed, I am happy, especially just because I hear you say my name for the first time. It sounds so sublime coming from your mouth. I am, indeed, also pleased with all other human beings, when they call me by the name of Billy, which also honors me, but with you, it is completely different with my name designation. Because you have done this for the first time in many years, namely, the first time since we first knew one another.
You embarrass me when you draw my attention to this omission.
In no wise do I want that.
I already know that, but still, I find this omission very unfortunate because I feel that the name designation is of importance. This is not common with us, unfortunately, but I will be concerned over the fact that this practice is also introduced with us. I honestly must confess to you that it has always touched me very deeply, and in a loving and friendly manner when you called me by name, as this was also the case with my daughter and with Quetzal and some others, as I was assured. This feeling of friendly love and of well-being was now also the reason why I addressed you by your name. This forms a greater bond with you as I now begin to see this. So I now just ask myself whether it would be right to you if in the future I address you by your real name, Edward. Or would it be more comfortable for you if I call you Billy?
I will leave that to your decision, my friend. Just do as you please, and use whatever name gives you more joy.
Then I would like to remain with Edward. It means guardian of the treasure, and this name significance applies to no one better than to you, my dear friend Edward.
Your decision makes me very happy, and I thank you.
I also thank you. This music that you are playing there, it has a lot of resemblance with our music.
It is the Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves from Nabucco by Giuseppe Verdi.
It is well known to me, like also many other melodies that you are playing. Only, do you not think that the music is a bit loud?
Certainly, but this is intentional, so that no one can overhear us. In the other office over there is Eva, and also the night watch is underway.
That is why I also turned on my device as usual. Otherwise, it would not be possible, unfortunately, that I could be in here with you.
For how long do these small swinging wave defense devices guarantee enough security, such that you are protected?
I own the latest device with a guaranteed security function that lasts for 7 hours and 54 minutes.
A tremendous achievement, when I think of the giant carrying device that Quetzal invented and carried around for a long time. But even so, progress never stands still if the person truly strives for this progress.
That is right.
That is clear. But now to something else. Here you have the new Talmud Emmanuel and Guidu's book. And still they fly. The Talmud is now completely corrected and is coded correctly. Perhaps there are still a few misspellings in it, but these do not impair the code. Also, we must completely go through an open word again and newly encode it, for this book was also falsified in large parts and was, in parts, copied incompletely. I would like to say that this book was falsified even worse and was copied more incompletely than what was the case with the Talmud Emmanuel. Unfortunately, we have also made the same determination with the contact reports, so I will still have to plow through these. We will be finished with an open word tonight, so it will then just have to be completely corrected by all responsible persons. Then we can reprint it, which will again cost us 20,000 to 25,000 francs. Now, I just hope that many other writings were not similarly falsified as these first ones. Also the spiritual teaching, aka creation energy teaching, unfortunately, contains errors, as one told me. So I probably need to deal with it again.
These tiresome incidents are known to me because I have already looked through and inspected the data of the control disk, through which I possess knowledge relating to the whole thing. unfortunately. You will have no other choice but always to examine all of your writings and books, etc., that are copied by other persons, and if necessary, to correct them again, which will, of course, keep you from doing the rest of your necessary work to the fullest extent. The evil of the falsifications of writings has already been present here since ages ago. On the one hand, due to the superior attitude and the selfishness of those who created copies, and on the other hand, due to carelessness and negligence, etc. A malicious evil that has already existed since the oldest times imaginable, which is easy to master by any means. For this reason, the only solution is probably that everything becomes thoroughly inspected by you, even if other very important works cannot be done as a result of this.
I also came to the same result. I also wrote down and added up all the many hours that I spent solely on correction work and on encoding work by myself, without including the many hours of joint corrections with the group members in the kitchen and the special corrections with Bernadette. For the Talmud Emmanuel, it was 235 hours, and for an open word, it was 243 hours. Now, when I calculate, in accordance with Quetzal's instructions, that my efforts in this form represent 21 hours of heavy labor for every 1 hour of my encoding activity, then I come to a working time of 10,038 hours of work that I solely spent in a year just on the Talmud Emmanuel and on an open word, without having included the rest of my daily work, which makes up about 8 hours a day when I add everything together. But in general, this also happens on Saturdays and Sundays, so for 7 days a week. That makes it even 2,920 hours more per year, which brings me to an annual number of hours of 12,958, even though a year only has about 8,160 hours. So this means that on average, I would actually have a daily effective working time of 35 hours and approximately 50 minutes.
That is not quite accurate, dear friend. Quetzal's calculation only refers to when you write in the strenuous form, I mean in that form that was made possible for you by Quetzal. When you wrote around 1-200 characters per minute on the typewriter, often for several hours, without you being able to pause or take a break for even 1 second. This resulted in an actual working time of 21 hours of highest effort per hour of activity, on average. But now, 1 hour of your work effort, when you encode, is to be assessed at a much higher effort, for during this, you perform a mathematical formula calculation work, for which there is not even a computational computer of terrestrial origin yet, if one can be invented at all, which could ever perform this work. So for yourself, you may equate a normal hour of activity of encoding, in accordance with Quetzal's calculations, with 28 hours of highest concentration work, according to which you must calculate 235 and 243 hours times 28 hours. So 478 times 28, which gives a result of 13,384, the actual number of hours that you outputted in reality, to which another 2,220 hours of usual and normal daily activity are then added, which gives a result of 16,304 human hours actually performed per year. A number of hours that is just slightly below double of that which a year has to exhibit in hours. This is an achievement that one could only expect from a robotic device if it would work at full speed for 2 years, without interruption and without the slightest break. But how you manage to do this as a human being, and also in just a single year, this is a mystery to us that we will probably never be able to solve. And now, in this case, you alone have accomplished a highly concentrated performance that constitutes a time of about 5.58 years. With a daily average of 8 hours, and with a 7-day week, or about 7.80 years with a 5-day week, if I do not ruin the correct result with my quick calculation.
Nice word, which I must note, could have come from me.
That it does. You can no longer remember that when we once worked through some calculations and computations together, you said that we would probably have to make more accurate results.
Nice, also good. Then it even comes from me, even though I no longer remember it. You know, my memory has just suffered in certain things, as a result of my breakdown on the 4th of November, 1982.
It certainly is not so bad anymore, and it is also not so important that you would have to remember every single word of our conversations. We also cannot do that in any wise, and you often surpass us with your memory capacity, even though this has actually suffered a lot of damage through your breakdown, just as this has also happened with your eyesight and with your hearing.
There, you are right, unfortunately, but I was also able to come to terms with this fact.
This wine is really excellent, Edward. May I ask you to refill my glass half full?
Of course, with great pleasure. I am very glad that you like it. Just make sure that the alcohol does not rise to your head.
I thank you, my friend. You do not need to be worried, however, because I cannot notice any signs of an influence of alcohol, which could have been triggered by the wine. I know very well how alcohol works because all of us, who had or have to do things on the earth, have conducted alcohol tests, through which the effect is well known to us, even if we have still never taken alcohol to ourselves.
Interesting. We should also be able to perform such tests, even with drugs, etc. How are such tests carried out with you, then?
Through psychovision of a psychophysical form.
Aha! You already explained something about that to me once, but you said that I may report nothing about it. At least in terms of that which it concerns. For there is the risk that the Earth scientists would immediately take up this possibility and would inflict the most serious harm to people.
That is right, because the knowledge about it would be immediately utilized for warlike purposes, through which the entire population could be driven into insanity by a single man within a few minutes. And that this is extremely easy, you should probably still know this.
You mean because of the tests that I made with the device?
Certainly.
I just wanted to know it, but I must confess that I repeatedly thought that I had become insane, especially with the drugs program.
It did not happen any differently with all of us.
But then, may I still give you a bottle of this wine?
Of course, because none of your words said too much. The wine is really bearable, and the low alcohol content does not produce any effect in me that is noticeable.
That makes me happy, Ptaah. Ah, maybe you can persuade Quetzal to drink a small glass with you? That would also make me happy. To my knowledge, he is not averse at times to doing something other than just the so-called norm, just like you. Otherwise, you would not have taken my magnum together and would not have played as wild adventurers.
That is right, and I am sure that he will not be averse to your proposal.
It is just that you may not let yourself get very badly out of the good human nature. It would be good if you just left it at 1 or, at the most, 2 glasses per occasion, but also just with this wine. I could not recommend other wines or other alcoholic drinks to you in good conscience.
Our sense also is not aligned toward that. But this drink is really excellent and very refreshing. Maybe I will ask you later for another bottle if you permit it.
Sure, I would rejoice about it if I could drain you another bottle. In general, I am always happy to see when I can give something to someone, and see that one is happy about it, and that the gift is gladly accepted.
That is well known to me. You cannot help it, for it is in your nature and in your life. But unfortunately, I already had to find out so many times by our quarterly inspections of our database that you reap no thanks for it from certain persons, but rather still receive evil words for it. An abomination which cannot be any worse.
You know, I have learned to cope with this. even though it always hurts when it happens lately. And the fact that it is still done over and over again, it is done with full intention in order to insult me. I already know that. But still, I cannot act otherwise. But please, let us not talk about this anymore.
Your words meet the truth very exactly, as I know from the data of the monitoring device.
Please, let's talk about something else.
Unfortunately, the time is no longer sufficient, for I must already leave you again. Obligations call me which I cannot postpone.
Too bad, but duty is duty.
Probably no one understands that better than you. Please pay my greetings to all the group members. And therefore, I should not forget to convey all the dearest wishes and greetings to all from my daughter and from Quetzal.
Dear thanks to all, as well as to you. Then I now want to give you the promised bottle of wine. One moment. Please. Here, my friend, and greet everyone quite dearly. Of course also Quetzal and Simyaase, as well as Nera and all others, such as Taljda and Manara, whom I already have not seen in ages. Also Isodos and so on. When are you coming back?
They will all be happy when I deliver them your greetings, and this time, the time will not be so long until I visit you the next time. Now farewell, Edward. Farewell and very dear thanks.
Take care, Ptaah. Bye, and until we meet again.